Hello, everybody. My name is Ezra, or you can call me E-Soup. I apologize for the visuals today. I have to use this webcam for a while, until I can get a new phone. I use my phone to record, and my phone camera is having problems. So that was kind of an issue. That's why the camera was all jiggly looking last time. I spent so much time thinking it was my tripod, like, jiggling, and it turned out that my camera just constantly goes in and out of focus. Um, so yeah. Um, how is everybody doing? Hi, Lanjade, Anna, Nina, and Phase of Peonies. It's good to see y'all. Um, it feels like, as always, it feels like it's been forever. Sometimes the wait from Wednesday to Monday, I'm just like, why? I'll be thinking like, why don't I do a third stream a week? And no, I wouldn't, I don't think that would be a good idea, but I do wish that it was there sometimes. Um, ooh, Nina, you're making a pour over coffee? That sounds so good. I keep, like, I have a way to make pour over, but every time I do it, I always have to look up how to do it again. I always forget. But it's very good when I can actually get it to come out right. Um, so, we're reading chapters 93 to 97 today, and there is a link to trigger warnings in the description if you need them. Also, please go ahead and like the stream if you like what I do. I would really appreciate that. Hi Wolf. Yes, I have a food scale and I do use it. I, Wolf, don't worry, you haven't missed anything. I haven't started yet, reading. Yeah, when I do a pour over, I use the food scale, but I guess I'm not good at, like, pouring slow enough or precisely enough, so sometimes, um, it doesn't quite turn out the way that I was trying to get it. Thank you, Nina. Yeah, that would be really cool. I will try your way. Um, so we left off right when I think Shen Zichuan was like storming the Shui Manor, and he said, "Tell Shui Shoujuo I'm looking for him," and we are right there in the middle of that. So I'm really excited to see what happens with that. Um, I am gonna get started. We are on page 207 for chapter 93, which is called General. The embroidered uniform guard swarmed through the Shui Manor, storming along the verandas and surging inside in every corner. The household was startled awake. The women huddled in fear as they were herded out of their rooms to assemble in the central courtyard. The embroidered uniform guard had a reputation for clandestine arrests, and in their eyes, Shen Zichuan was a man-eating predator. Not surprising. Xue Xiuyi swiftly dressed and stepped into the courtyard. Seeing Xue Xiujuo already standing under the eaves, he lunged forward and grabbed him, hissing resentfully. "What did you do to bring out the embroidered uniform guard to our door? If you've gotten us into trouble, I'll have you disowned by the clan." Xue Xiujuo turned his head to look at his snarling eldest brother, allowing himself to be manhandled. Eyes filled with pity and indifference, he said, "The whole family shares in fame and fortune, but when misfortune beckons, one person alone bears it all. Daga, have no fear. It's still far from your turn to lead this clan." He pushed Xue Xiuyi away and walked along the steps toward Chen Zichuan. This was the second time Shen Zichun and Xue Xiuzhuo had met face to face. When the embroidered uniform guard arrived, Xue Xiuzhuo hadn't yet gone to bed. He'd been in the study going through case files and had promptly walked out and draped in an azure wide-sleeved robe. This man had a calm and steady aura, and his scholarly elegance was not something that could be donned in a day. He was genuinely capable, something Shen Zichun had never denied. Also, Wolf, I did see that comment about Shen Zichun man-eating in more ways than one. To what do I owe the pleasure of the Vice Commander's presence at this late hour? Xue Xiuzhuo was of a similar height to Shen Zichun, and he stood firm as he greeted him. Had I known, I would have prepared refreshments and welcomed you at once. I received the imperial edict just this evening. His Majesty has ordered me to take charge of the military provisions case. The embroidered uniform guard wouldn't dare be sloppy with such a major case. We have already arrested Wei Huaigu. Shen Zichun scrutinized the calligraphed couplets hanging in the main hall, not meeting Xue Xiuzhuo's eyes as he continued, nonchalant. Wei Huaigu has always been friendly with Assistant Minister Xue. For the sake of clearing your excellency of any conflict of interest, the Xue manor will be searched tonight. I'm aware that the Court of Judicial Review is assisting the embroidered uniform guard with this case, but I am an appointed official of the Imperial Court. If the embroidered uniform guard wishes to search my estate, you'll need a warrant issued by the Ministry of Justice. Xue Xiuzhuo looked around the courtyard and saw panic and confusion everywhere. However, I can see this case is urgent, and the Vice Commander has the special prerogative to act first and report later. Uncle Xue, hand the keys to the inner courtyard to the embroidered uniform guard. Wherever they wish to search, lead them there. Shen Zichun cocked his head. You're certainly something. You've even prepared for an imperial edict issued on a whim. Xue Xiuzhuo smiled. Of course I must act with caution when encountering a character like the Vice Commander. It's late and chilly out. If the Vice Commander doesn't find it beneath you, perhaps you'd like to have a cup of tea with me inside. The grounds of the manor are large. By the time you're done searching, it will be time for morning court. I'll skip it. Shen Zichun turned slowly. How could I accept tea from such a prominent clan? I'm not worthy of the honor. Does this mean I can expect to return empty-handed again today? That will no doubt depend on what the Vice Commander is looking for. If you were looking to investigate the case, then I regret to say you will. Wei Huaigu and I are mere acquaintances. We share no personal connections. Shen Zichun fell silent. As he stared at Xue Xiuzhuo, that subtle feeling of being toyed with surfaced again. Qiao Tianya returned only after a long while. From across the courtyard, Shen Zichun saw him shake his head. Shifu and Xiansheng were not here. As they say, the wily hare has 3 burrows, Shen Zichun said softly. Just the fish at the bottom of the cookpot getting a momentary reprieve, that's all, Xue Xiuzhuo said deferentially. You have one chance with me. Shen Zichun stepped closer to Xue Xiuzhuo. Where are they? It was a moonless night, and the damp chill that came after rain pervaded the air. The men and women herded into the courtyard had covered their faces to weep. Xue Xiuyi didn't know the details, but fearing Xue Xiuzhuo would infuriate Shen Zichun, he took a quick step forward and bowed with his hands clasped before him, asking with trepidation, "Who is your excellency looking for?" We're harboring no fugitives from the military provisions case. All the people of the manor are here. Your Excellency, please interrogate them as you will. We'll tell you everything we know. We won't hold anything back. Xue Xiuzhuo said nothing. Seeing he couldn't be swayed, Shen Zichun said to Xue Xiuyi, I'm looking for wanted criminals of the imperial court. I've heard there's a group of prostitutes kept in Assistant Minister Xue's manor. Is that right? Xue Xiuzhuo's gaze flickered. Xue Xiuyi cried, Yes, there is. Soliciting and consorting with prostitutes are all activities impeachable by the Chief Surveillance Bureau. He's been careful to hide them, so the Grand Masters of Remonstrance have no idea. Your Excellency, please take a look. Those youths are right here. They're nothing but trivial playthings. How could they be wanted criminals of the imperial court? Noting the minute change in Xue Xiuzhuo's expression, Shen Zichun shifted his gaze to the boys and girls. Do you not know the significance of Xiangyun Villa in the recent assassination case? Everyone there is a wanted criminal. Assistant Minister Xue bought these young men and women from such an establishment without so much as a word. Why wasn't the Ministry of Justice notified? Xue Xiuzhuo pushed Xue Xiuyi aside. These people all have proof of household registration. Although they came from a brothel, they're all decent, innocent people. The vice commander is investigating the matter of the military provisions tonight. This has nothing to do with them, so why are you so insistent? Their innocence will be determined after a trip to the imperial prison. Shen Zichun glanced over his shoulder. Take them. The young people all hugged themselves and started crying. Chao Tianya took the lead and dragged them all away. Under Xue Xiuzhuo's tutelage, the boys had been taught to carry themselves like the sons of distinguished clans. They were no match for this stern, embroidered uniform guard. They wept and wailed as they were apprehended. Xue Xiuyi was so frightened his knees knocked together. Still wanting to say a few words to ease the tension, his thoughts landed on Xiao Chuya. Your Excellency. Bracing himself, Xue Xiuyi choked out, Since this matter concerns Li Bei, then why not ask what his lordship thinks? If something really is wrong, then by all means, go ahead and take Xue Xiuzhuo away. Xue Xiuzhuo suddenly took a few steps forward to block Chao Tianya's way, bellowing. Even on a case, the embroidered uniform guard still must follow proper procedures. Vice Commander Shen, before you detain my people, I want to see an arrest warrant from the Ministry of Justice. Take them away. Hand on his hilt, Shen Zichun forced Xue Xiuzhuo to take a step back. If you want an arrest warrant, I'll give you as many as you want tomorrow morning. Shen Zichun, Xue Xiuzhuo flung his sleeves back. I'll impeach you for abusing the power of public office to settle private grudges. Go ahead. Submit the memorial for impeachment tonight. Shen Zichun's tone turned frosty. These people are now in my hands. I'll kill one for every day I don't see Xiancheng. Take a guess. How long will it take before I reach your precious pupil? You wouldn't dare. Xue Xiuzhuo flew into a rage. Chao Tianya was already dragging the prisoners away, their cries increasing in urgency. He grabbed Chao Tianya's arm to hold him back. Hi, Henry. Oh, yeah, I'm glad you caught up. By arresting innocent commoners, all of you are accessories to crime. What the hell kind of case are you investigating? Stop. Get in my way again, and I'll start right now. Shen Zichun's thumb pushed his blade out of its sheath to reveal the cold glint of steel. The moment he saw Shen Zichun reach for his blade, Xue Xiuyi was so seized with terror that he fainted where he stood. Cries of "Eldest Master" rose from the surrounding servants as they hurried to help him up. Xue Shoujuo, who was being hauled backward by several guards, watched helplessly as the embroidered uniform guard shoved all the students up onto the wagons. Shen Zichuan. Xue Shoujuo gripped the arm blocking his way, his composure all but gone. Eyes bloodshot, he spat resentfully. You dare to kill him. You dare kill him? You bloody-minded tyrant. You aren't worthy of being Xiancheng's student. Shen Zichuan leapt atop his horse and rode away, leaving Xue Shoujuo's shouts of abuse behind. No, wait a minute. When he was just saying just now, Shen Zichuan, you dare kill him. Xue Shoujuo said that. Now, who is he talking about? Because is he not identifying a possibility of who the secret heir might be among the group of the prostitutes that he bought when he said you dare kill him? Or is he talking about someone else? I can't really tell what that's supposed to mean. Far south of the beleaguered Libei frontier, the Bianjun front was heating up as well. Lu Guangbai had returned to his camp for a rest, yet hadn't even dismounted when he saw his deputy general hastening toward him. What's the matter? The deputy general's expression was ugly. General, he whispered, Chudu has dispatched a military inspector eunuch here. He came escorting this year's provisions. After a moment of silence, Lu Guangbai slid out of the saddle, removed his helmet, and lifted the curtain to enter the tent. A eunuch was seated in the very center, dressed in a python-patterned robe that showed off his status and a wide-brimmed official's hat. When he saw Lu Guangbai enter, he made no move to rise and pay obeisance. Lu Guangbai set aside his long spear. Gong Gong has certainly traveled a long way. Surely you're in need of a rest. I've ordered the men to tidy up a tent. Ying Shi was a recently promoted eunuch, but he had connections within the palace. He knew his masters had never looked kindly on the Lu clan of the Bianjun commandery, and thus he also looked down on Lu Guangbai. When he deigned to reply, he said, This place is remote and barren, and staffed by clumsy oafs. How would they know how to serve their betters? The general needn't go to such trouble. I've already taken a look around, and that tent is so dark and filthy as to be uninhabitable. I sent some men off to Cangjun to buy some timber. I plan to build a residence here. I have to stay for half a year. Lu Guangbai wasn't good with words. He knew military inspector eunuchs were always this pretentious, and couldn't be bothered to make any more conversation. He unfastened his arm guard. With the removal of that iron skin, pus and blood dripped onto the ground. Yingxi covered his nose in horror at the sight of it. How did it fester like that? The deputy general had dragged a medical chest over to dress Lu Guangbai's wounds, but when he saw his arm, he exclaimed, General, it's rubbed raw. We have to get the army medic to take a look. Lu Guangbai motioned for him to shut up, and felt for the dagger strapped to the side of his thigh. He sat and poured alcohol onto his wound, then held the dagger in the candle flame until it was searing hot. The deputy general rushed to hold back his sleeve for him. Yingxi had never seen someone so ruthless with their own body, and his hands and feet went cold as he listened to the sound of festering flesh gouged out. Lovely. Lu Guangbai sprinkled medicine over the wound and held his arm out for the deputy general to bandage it up for him. The horsemen are tricky, he said as the deputy worked. Without a deployment order from on high, we can't pursue them beyond a certain range, and we're too busy fighting to bother with flesh wounds when we're locked in attrition battles. Lu Guangbai braced his hands on his knees and looked back at Yingxi. Did Gong Gong come with the military provisions? Yingxi swallowed his nausea and nodded. Lu Guangbai rose. I'll go take a look. Without another word, he stepped out of the tent with his deputy general and strode toward the provisions. The rest of the men who had escorted them had already left. Lu Guangbai made his way into the granary and opened one of the bulging burlap sacks. When he saw the provisions within, he frowned. He reached out to grab a handful. It was all damp and moldy rice. General, the deputy general said, it's not just poor quality this time. The quantity is pathetic too. We have 20,000 men in the Bianjun Commandery, and our troops are deployed every day to engage in constant small skirmishes. We're more mobile, and therefore eat a lot as well. The amount we need to fill our bellies is far greater than the stationary garrison troops of Qidong's other 4 commanderies. This bit of rotten grain won't even last until autumn. Lu Guangbai let the rice stream out of his scar-covered palm. Secretariat Elder Hai has always looked out for us. Last year's provisions were all allocated in a timely fashion. Why short us this time? They really are mistreating their own security forces, and I don't know why. Someone is up to something. The deputy general's chest heaved. He opened his mouth several times to say something, but pressed his lips shut over his words. If you have something to say it, Lu Guangbai said. What's this? Spit it out. General. The deputy general was indignant. He stepped forward and grasped a handful of the rice, his voice breaking with emotion. They gave us less. Why? Obviously, because they were in a hurry to ship to Li Bei. Fucking hell. So the Li Bei armored cavalry are all good men and loyal soldiers, while the garrison troops of our Bianjun Commandery are undeserving bastards? Those court officials have always fawned over those at the top and bullied those at the bottom. They step on you at every opportunity. But we're fighting a war out here. We're putting lives on the line. How could they play favorites? What issue have they taken with our Bianjun Commandery? We're dirt poor, yet they skimp everywhere they can. I asked the men who escorted the supplies what we're supposed to do in autumn, and they said the imperial court told us to play it by ear and figure it out ourselves. Play it by ear? Fuck them to hell and back. So it, seems like a scheme to... Well, part of it seems like it might be a scheme to get Li Bei and the commandery, like, fighting. Also, yes, Anna, did they not hear about Xiao Jiming? That's a good question. I wonder if they haven't yet. I don't know exactly how fast that news would travel, but it does make me wonder. But it makes me wonder, is it, Henry, you said, I bet someone in the 8th grade clans is allying themselves with the Bian Cha. And that could definitely be it. And on top of that, it's like creating infighting, which could also be useful for some purpose. Wait, isn't Lu Guangbai's sister married to Xiao Jiming? Right. So I feel like they should know what happened to him already. Maybe they do? I'm not totally sure. The deputy general clenched his fists. Qidong's military provisions were reduced by half and supplied to Li Bei, but the other commanderies aren't actively fighting, and they have military fields to eat off of, while we've got nothing but air and hot sand. Once autumn arrives, the horses of the 12 tribes of Bian Cha will be fat off the grass of the steppe, and it will be even harder for us to fight them. With this meager supply of grain, we, Not a word more, Lu Guangbai bellowed, cutting off the deputy general's tirade. Lu Guangbai stood for a long time in the darkness. Eventually, he peered at the starry sky outside the granary and rasped, "I'll think of a way." The beacon towers of the Bianjun commandery stood in silence above the rolling terrain. The night sealed off the light of the sky like muddy water obstructed a drain. Lu Guangbai didn't enjoy the prestigious reputation accorded to the other three great generals. He was like a stubborn rock stationed at the edge of this vast desert, enduring the weight of oppressive pressure from three directions until it had chipped all of his natural smoothness into sharp, jagged edges. The members of their Lu clan had died one after another, leaving only Lu Guangbai to inherit Lu Pingyan's spear. Lu Guangbai was not a particularly clever man. He was unlikable. He came late to his fame and had none of the natural talents granted to Xiao Jiming and Qi Juyin. He was Lu Pingyan's youngest and stupidest son. And yet, with these meager qualities, he had held the Bianjun commandery aloft after Lu Pingyan's retirement. He maintained a tight grip on the strategic passage through which the Biansha horsemen repeatedly attempted to advance and overwhelm them. He had no shifu. He was a general who had learned his craft by following in the footprints of Lu Pingyan, tumbling through the desert sands. He treated others with sincerity and was riddled with scars. All that night, Lu Guangbai didn't sleep. He sat on the dirt slope before the camp, hugging his spear, racking his brain for a way to resolve the military provisions shortage. Qi Juyin had jurisdiction over the 5 commanderies, but she had long emptied her own private savings, coming to their aid over the years. He couldn't ask her for help this time. His old man at home was still ill, and he couldn't very well ask Lu Pingyan to drag his sick body from door to door, begging for a loan. When the deputy general got up in the middle of the night to relieve himself, he saw the lonely silhouette of Lu Guangbai's back. And of course, we have art of this, because why not? Sad man. Also, when it said he was the stupidest brother, I'm just like, I don't buy that. I don't agree. No. He thought to go over and tell the general to rest, but before he could approach, he saw Lu Guangbai bend over and reach out to touch the earth at his feet. His head, thus lowered, stayed down for a long, long time. Oh, and that's the end of the chapter. Well, that's the mood that we're sort of starting today on. So, we're on page 219 for chapter 94, which is called Raging Waves. Oh, Blue, you just caught up at 2 times speed. You were looking forward to the scene with Lu Guangbai. You said a few months ago you're impressed that Tong Jo Ching. Wait, oh my god, what is Tong Jo Ching? Tong Jo Ching managed to make me care about a character in one scene. Right, because we didn't really know Lu Guangbai very well. Prior to this. We have him in some scenes, but we don't really, like, know him. So now it's just, like, immediately, I feel it too. Like, I feel for him. And this is, like, the most that we've gotten about him so far. And we've got the art, too. Blue turnips. No, don't worry. I just didn't quite have her name memorized yet. Yeah. Anna, she's very good at this. I agree. Shen Zichuan moved quickly. Wei Huaigu was sent to prison and placed on trial. while Yang Chung from the Provincial Administration Commission of Jueshi was also apprehended by the Embroidered Uniform Guard. This was a major case in the first year of Tianchen, and the entire court of civil and military officials watched with rapt attention. It didn't take long for the imperial prison to wring a confession out of Yang Chung. Wei Huaigu had been reselling military provisions since the 4th year of Xiande. Using his position as the Minister of Revenue, Wei Huaigu would buy provisions from Yang Chung each time they were dispatched. He then sold them at a higher price to Shi Hongxuan, who transported the stolen military grain via a number of land and sea routes to the 6 prefectures of Zhongbo and even across the Sea of Shuhai, making an enormous profit off the harvest, while letting the common folk of Jueshi bear the land tax for the fields. Shen Zichuan looked through Yang Chung's confession. You've been running this operation of yours for a long time. Did your conscience suddenly awaken that you decided to expose Wei Huaigu through the relay report? Yang Chung, who had already spent several days in the imperial prison, hung his head. They filled the gap with moldy grain this time. It's not just a matter of money anymore. Li Bei is fighting a war. Once sent, this grain would become the poison that kills our soldiers at the frontier. I was afraid something bad would really happen to the heir of Li Bei. Only Yang Chung, Shen Zichuan, and Xiao Qiye sat at the table. Cloaked in shadow, Xiao Qiye spoke up. You were so certain this grain would reach the heir of Li Bei's mouth? Yang Chung shifted uneasily. His lips were pale. I was just afraid. I may be greedy, but I'm no murderer. Don't be afraid. Shen Zichuan cast a glance at Xiao Qiye and softened his tone. You may be in the imperial prison, but this case is being personally overseen by His Majesty. If you have anything to say, you can feel safe telling us. The contrast between these men was stark. Yang Chung gulped. He was still dazed from the interrogation he'd endured last night. I didn't know, he muttered. I didn't think. What didn't you know? What didn't you know? Shen Zichuan asked gently. I didn't think something would actually happen to the heir of Li Bei. Yang Chung began to sob weakly. I didn't know. I was worried the Li Bei armored cavalry would be defeated because of this and let the Biansha horsemen in again. Xiao Qiye leaned forward, his shadow like a ferocious beast that loomed over Yang Chung. In a voice like ice, he said, So you knew these military provisions could cause the Li Bei armored cavalry's defeat, yet you still sealed them up and loaded them into the wagons. You deserve to die. Yang Chung shivered under Xiao Qiye's gaze. He cried incoherently, Your lordship, I confess, I deserve to die. You won't die. Shen Zichuan turned his peerless face to him, those expressive upturned eyes brimming with compassion. The main perpetrator in this case is Wei Huaigu. He used his position to coerce you. There was nothing you could do. I understand how difficult it must have been. Surely his lordship understands as well. Yang Chung, you entered civil service in the era of Yongyi. You've been an official in Jueshi half your life, and you climbed your way up to the post of Assistant Administration Commissioner. You're a capable man. All your past reviews prove this. Now that Jiang Qingshan has left Jueshi to take charge in Zhongbo, the position of the Provincial Administration Commissioner will be vacant. Based on age and experience, you would have been the first candidate considered by the Ministry of Personnel. Your future should have been bright, yet you forfeited everything for a few coins. Was it worth it? Hunched over the table, Yang Chung's shoulders shook. I heard you grew up in Baimajo. Your family was poor, and you lost your father when you were just 6. Your mother raised you and your siblings all on her own. She spent more than half of her life working herself to the bone to send you and your brothers to school. She lived to see you become an official and set up your own manor, yet you went and committed such a grave mistake. Shen Zichuan's tone was gentle as he said, "From today onward, she'll be left alone, forsaken. I hardly dare mention the scorn and curses she'll endure following this case. How could you be so heartless?" Yang Chung burst into helpless tears. He was a scholar at his core. The social virtues of propriety, justice, integrity, and honor were deeply ingrained in him. He was a filial child, attending to his mother's every need when he was home. Burying his face in his hands, he cried, "I've made such an unpardonable mistake. I'm worse than swine. I'm too ashamed to see her again. This case is not yet closed. Whether or not you'll be executed remains up for debate." Xiao Qia tossed the confession down and looked sidelong at him. Yeah, Blue and Anna, I know them doing the good cop, bad cop thing. Since you still know shame, you must have a shred of conscience left. The questions I'll ask you next will be off the record. Answer truthfully, and I'll find a way to preserve your life so your old mother can live her remaining years in peace. If you dare make excuses and conceal the truth, I'll have you beheaded tomorrow at Duancheng Gate for all to see. With one relay report, you sold out Wei Huaigu and upset quite a number of people's golden rice bowl. You're on the inside of this operation. You should understand best what fate awaits the widows and orphans your co-conspirators will leave behind. Without me to vouch for you, the lives of everyone in your family are in danger. Yang Chung wept for a long time. When he'd finally cried himself out, Shen Zichuan brought him a cup of hot tea. Hastily wiping his tears, Yang Chung thanked him twice over. He was silent a long while, holding the tea in both hands, then said, "Your lordship's willingness to protect me is a life-saving kindness. I wouldn't dare ask to re-enter civil service as an official again. A sentence of exile is lenient enough. This case implicates too many. It's a long story, so I will tell it to your lordship slowly. Since the first year of Xiande, the state treasury has been horribly depleted. The Ministry of Revenue's account books are a mess. During his time as the Grand Secretary of the Grand Secretariat, Hua Siqian colluded with Pan Rugui to approve many construction projects that squandered public funds. Most of them weren't actually built, like the Linlong Garden in Qinzhou. These gardens were merely a pretext to pass the Grand Secretariat's scrutiny and get approval to draw money from the state treasury. Everyone involved knew of this illegal collusion between officials and merchants. Money flowed into their pockets like water. Wei Huaigu approached me in the 4th year of Xiande. I'll be honest, your lordship, I knew I shouldn't touch this money, but I felt I had no choice. When provincial officials like us entered Chudu, the Pan and Hua factions took turns calling on us and asking for ice respects. I'm sure you know that former practice of buying a promotion with bribes. The noble clans have the inherent dignity of their status to help them along. The ones truly held back by these ice respect and coal respect bribes were officials like me from common households. Without money, we couldn't enter the central administration. Without money, we couldn't get anything done at all. That year, Jueshi faced a plague of locusts, and not a single grain was harvested from any of the 13 cities. It was Jiang Qingshan who shouldered this burden and saved our lives. He opened the commercial granaries by force to offer aid to commoners and prevented hunger from deteriorating into famine. But this made Jiang Qingshan a thorn in the side of the business tycoons of Jueshi. The capital was all too aware of this. Debtors waited outside the doors of his home, and his elderly mother had to work the loom to help pay off his debt. But what debt was this? We all knew he was repaying the debt on behalf of Chudu. Yet there's one thing no one else knew, save for the officials in the Provincial Administration Commission of Jueshi. Just how timely Zhongbo's defeat was. The state treasury was empty then, and Jueshi was in crisis. Li Bei and the Bianjun commandery still had to fight the Biansha horsemen. Even the harvest down in Hezhou was dismal. Common people across these regions had been starving to death since the beginning of the year. The Ministry of Revenue was backed into a corner, yet they had no way to provide aid to anyone because the state treasury had been drained dry. Hua Siqian owed every region an explanation, and Hai Liangyi was already digging into the accounts. Hua Siqian was in a terrible fix. When the Hua clan in Dicheng sold some of their manors, the Shi clan snapped them up. We all knew that Hua Siqian was selling assets to fill the hole in the state treasury, but there was no way he could replenish a pit of that size alone. Thus, Hua Siqian began to collect on his debts. Whether Hua Siqian got his money back, I don't know, but this was the moment the Biansha horsemen launched their assault at Chashi River. The garrison troops in Duanzhou suffered a crushing defeat, and Shen Wei fled from the enemy and holed himself up like a tortoise, leading Zhongbo's prefectures to fall, one after another. Thanks to the Li Bei armored cavalry and Shidong garrison troops providing reinforcements from the north and south, our forces stopped the Biansha horsemen at the gates of Chudu. But although the land was reclaimed, the massacred cities had become hollowed-out shells. The relief grain Jueshi received that year was precisely the grain that belonged to the dead of the 6 prefectures of Zhongbo. Shen Zichuan shot to his feet. He stood in the darkness without saying a word. Xiao Qi's heart chilled as well. He and Shen Zichuan had made many guesses in the past, but it had never occurred to them that the defeat of Zhongbo had been orchestrated for the purpose of filling the empty granaries across the empire, thereby saving Hua Siqian and the other officials whose positions were at risk because of the investigation into the state treasury. More than 100,000 people died in Zhongbo. Stupefied, Shen Zichuan gripped the edge of the table. His gaze seemed to lose focus as he spoke, his voice growing hoarse. More than 30,000 soldiers. Do you know what you're saying? This revelation had blindsided him. He had spent 6 years convincing himself that all those people had died because of a struggle for power. Those bright and spirited people, those young faces, all of them had been alive once, just as Jimu had. Duanzhou had been first to fall. They'd all died tragic deaths. The singing that reverberated in the Chashi sinkhole would remain Shen Zichuan's nightmare for a lifetime. The defeat of Zhongbo had left countless victims. No one had collected the bodies of the soldiers who fell in battle. The dreams of the survivors drowned in blood. Under the weight of this oppressive atmosphere, Yang Cheng wrapped his arms around his head. The substitution of the military grain terrified me this time. Zhongbo had troops to come to its rescue, but Li Bei's only reinforcements must come from Luoxia Pass. If the Biansha horsemen were to breach Li Bei, I'd become a sinner condemned through the ages. The arrival of the Biansha horsemen and the fall of Zhongbo were too well timed. Xiao Qi's voice was cold. It was no coincidence that the Hanma tribe shifted their troops south to the Chashi River crossing. It was because they received information. If that was true, the Hanma tribe's recent encounter with Xiao Jiming at the eastern side of the Hongyan mountain range was no coincidence either. There were people everywhere in the empire relaying information to the 12 tribes of Biansha. In Chudu, in Zhongbo, in Li Bei, Even in Shidong, these people kept the 12 tribes of Biansha as their own tame beast, like raising a jackal so famished it would tear into anything you tossed at it. And when necessary, they would let it through the border to gobble up traces of any filth they couldn't wipe clean. I can't say if anyone else in the central administration is still selling provisions, Yang Chung said fearfully. But it was such a close call this time. There are reserves in the state treasury now, and the Grand Secretariat is carrying out stringent audits on the Ministry of Revenue's accounts. It'd be treason to allow the Biansha horsemen to invade our nation again. I don't know. I didn't dare take the chance. There are people monitoring my private correspondence, so I could only inform Chudu through the relay report. Shen Zichuan suddenly grabbed Yang Chung and lifted him out of his seat. If you wanted to report Wei Huaigu, why did you affix the Ministry of Revenue's tag when you sent the missive? The instant that report entered Chudu, it landed in Wei Huaigu's hands. The teacup slipped from Yang Chung's fingers. Amid the sound of porcelain shattering, he said in a trembling voice, "What? No. I affixed it with the tag of the Ministry of Justice." Shen Zichuan was stunned. Shaking with fear, Yang Chung said in disbelief, "I'd be dead if this report landed in Wei Huaigu's hands. I've heard the Minister of Justice, Kong Chiu, is a man of courage. He isn't from a noble clan, so he wouldn't delay things or cover for Wei Huaigu. I checked it over and over before dispatching it to make sure. It was the Ministry of Justice I tagged." "We've been had." Xiaoqia held a hand out to steady Shen Zichuan, his eyes flinty. "Wei Huaigu isn't the culprit this time." When Wei Huaigu received that relay report, he knew someone had already read its contents. It was blackmail. He had to turn himself in. What? Hello, what is going on? Also, yes, Xiaoqia held out a hand to steady Shen Zichuan. Marriage. They're married. They're married already. Blue, you're correct. We can never escape the stains of filth. Henry, we're eating the remnants of filth in this one. Yeah, that took a second. I was reading what Yang Chung was saying, and it was taking a second to sink in what all of it meant. And then they very clearly spelled it out, and I appreciate that at this moment. When it was just like, it had been orchestrated for the purpose of filling the empty granaries across the empire. And that is a conspiracy. That's big things are happening. Big things were already happening, and they keep happening, and they keep getting bigger and implicating more people. And this last part about the blackmail, I'm just like, I'm sorry, what? And what's scary is that, like, we're in a situation that Chen Zichuan and Xiaoqia did not foresee. And we know that they're so good at being ahead of the curve, but they can't always be ahead of the curve. So right now, they're in a situation, and they did not see it coming. And I don't like that. So let me see. I'm not sure if I should take a break now or wait till after the break. I think this is a short chapter. Or take it now, Blue. It's better to take it now. Oh, trust me. Okay, well then I will take a break now. Thank you, Blue. Yes, Henry, it's been fun to see them always anticipating what's coming, but it's really cool to see them get blindsided. That's true. Like, they can't always be ahead of the curve, or else that wouldn't be as interesting for, like, the conflict. But it's just like, oh, we're really in it now. Like, this is serious. Okay, so I'm gonna take a break. When we come back, we will be on page 227, for chapter 95, which is called The State. Hello, I'm back. Blue, that is really impressive. That you and Wolf are racing against each other to read ahead in QJJ, and you already are almost done with volume 5. That's wild. I also thought, volume 6. Oh, you won't be able to get volume 6 until January. Okay. Yeah. That is a feeling when you're just like, oh my god, I'm almost caught up, and then it's like, oh no, I'm almost caught up. What do I do now? Yeah, so, and thank you for telling me to pause where I did and not, take a break after this upcoming chapter, but now I'm scared about what is about to happen. But, I guess we're gonna find out. We are on chapter 95, The State. Wei Huaigu, a man over 50, had been stripped of his official's robes and treated as a common prisoner. He stood shackled on the other side of the iron bars from Xiao Chie. No one had maltreated him in the days since he'd been put on trial. His hair, which had been tied up in a topknot, was tidy, and his face was clean. Yet he seemed to have aged several years in a few short days. He looked haggard. The trial ended last night. Wei Huaigu sank down into the chair in his cell. My confession has been submitted, and I'm awaiting my sentence. What more do you two wish to ask? Embezzlement of state treasury funds, resale of military provisions for private profit, the poisoning of frontier generals. All three are capital offenses. Xiao Chie looked closely at Wei Huaigu. Wei Huaixing has also been stripped of his position and thrown in prison pending impeachment. The Wei clan has fallen and knocked out 2 court ministers with it. You've made no attempt to refute it. What, did you find your conscience this time? This matter concerns Li Bei. Who would dare bend the rules or play favorites? No one would speak up for me. Wei Huaigu leaned back in his chair as if he were still sitting in his seat at the Ministry of Revenue's office. He looked at Xiao Chie. Even your father has come out of retirement to take up command in this crisis. I'm sure His Majesty hasn't slept a wink the past few days. The Prince of Li Bei is the same tough nut he used to be. He knows how to best execute a rap on the knuckles. You knew those provisions would be delivered to Li Bei when you were filling wagons up with moldy grain. But you still did it, didn't you? You weren't the slightest bit afraid that no one would speak for you then. Xiao Chie took a step toward the bars. To send that rot into my Dago's mouth, adulterating the supplies, was only the first step. When the grain arrived in Li Bei, you bribed the officials in charge of the granary to close one eye and send it to the camps. This was the second step. You then bribed the mess cooks of the Li Bei armored cavalry and mixed this poison into the dishes before they were served to the soldiers at the frontier pass. This was the third step. Xiao Chie stopped and slanted a look at Wei Huaigu. These arrangements required time and effort. The moment the whole scheme came to light, you would never be able to deny your involvement. Now, not only will you not get away with it, you'll be subjected to an interrogation by the Ministry of Justice, which will expose your history of reselling military provisions for profit. You must have considered this. Wei Huaigu didn't respond immediately. He glanced at Shen Zichuan, who had been sitting behind Xiao Qia all this time, and laughed. Our Gongzi has made progress during these 6 years in Chudu. Back when you first entered the capital, you spent your days picking fights and baying for blood. He pointed at Shen Zichuan. Vice Commander Shen knows this all too well, right? That's why I said Xiao Fengshu has an iron fist, to dare polish his son against the edge of a blade. You have your father to thank for the man you are now. Xiao Qia looked at Wei Huaigu with indifference. It was Shen Zichuan who pushed aside the confession statement and sat forward. With both hands clasped lightly on the table, he said without a hint of emotion, "That's right. You look upon today's Xiao Tse and find it unfair. During the reign of Xiande, your son frittered away his days mixing with the brothel crowd. By the time the Grand Secretariat was seeking new personnel in the current reign of Tian Chen, entering officialdom through the imperial examinations would have been an insurmountable challenge for him, even if he wanted to. You're growing old, yet the Wei clan has no lawful son capable of upholding the clan's name. You pinned your hopes on a marriage alliance, but unfortunately, the Fei clan saw the writing on the wall. Commandery Princess Zhao Yue married into the Pan clan instead. As the Minister of Revenue, you repeatedly demoted and relegated newly appointed officials to remote regions because you feared being replaced by up-and-coming talents. Today, the Wei clan appears to sit at the height of power, but in reality, it's a lovely vase full of water that's about to spill. With your death, you will have sealed the Wei clan's fate." Touching his shackles, Wei Huaigu said, "The influence of any clan is like the tide. Its rise and fall are merely facts of the world. They who thrive one moment may decline the next. All this is predestined. There's nothing I'll regret when the time comes for the Wei clan. For as long as our great Zhou has existed, it has gone through changes with every generation. Only the 8 great clans have abided unchanged. My death will ensure the Wei clan's survival." "Will the 8 great clans truly remain unchanged?" Xiao Qia said. "The internal strife between the Shi brothers led to the end of their bloodline. They have no descendants from either the principal wife or any concubines. From now on, the Shi clan will be a shadow of itself. It's only a matter of time before they are squeezed out of the political arena." Wei Huaigu laughed. "As long as the Shi clan exists, they're still in the game. Today you kill Shi Hongxuan, hoping to cut apart the Shi clan's family fortune. Yet you can't bear to give up the Shi clan's businesses. You'll have to continue relying on their people to keep things running. So tell me, is the Shi clan really dead? They've merely lost a helmsman. This is a temporary predicament. As long as their lady of the house still controls the businesses under the Shi clan's name, then when she finds someone she fancies in the future, all she has to do is marry into the family and change his surname. Their child will bear the name Shi. These will be the new lawful sons that will continue the Shi clan's legacy." Candle wax dripped like tears onto the table. The night was coming to an end. It was deathly quiet outside. Wei Huaigu stood up, like a teacher leading a discussion. "There's a question I've always wanted to ask Xiao Fengshu in person. It seems I won't have a chance now, so I can only ask you. Xiao Qia, your father came from humble roots. He experienced his share of hardship on the frontier before he finally surmounted the sea of suffering to gain his own lands and title. You all claim to have broken the shackles of the noble clans. But it's been 30 years now, and Li Bei and the Xiao clan have become a single, inseparable entity. He came to have sons, too. You and Xiao Jiming are both lawful sons born to the principal wife. To avoid disputes between sons of lawful and common birth, he refused to take a concubine or remarry when his wife died. He turned you and Xiao Jiming into the only choices for leadership over the Li Bei armored cavalry. Is this any different from the impenetrable fortress built at the inception of a noble clan? You walk the very same path as us. After a moment of silence, Xiao Qia answered him. You think this way because you can't comprehend that there are people in this world willing to be bound by love. My father never remarried or took a concubine because my mother was the only one in this life with whom he was willing to exchange vows. He established the tactics and arms of the Li Bei armored cavalry. He understands this force better than anyone else. This cavalry is his third son, one that's even more important than my brother and me. All along, the only ones who have seen us as the only choices for the Li Bei armored cavalry are people like you. My presence in Chudu does not put a collar around the Li Bei armored cavalry, only around Xiao Fengshu and Xiao Jiming. There's one thing you still don't understand. My father has indeed set up an impenetrable fortress around the position of the Li Bei armored cavalry's commander. But this isn't a barrier of iron meant to safeguard the status of a noble clan. Rather, it's a hurdle to be cleared, a test of whether one can truly lead the Li Bei armored cavalry against the ceaseless incursions of Bian Sha, can bear the ravages of fire and ice. 30 years ago, Xiao Fengshu was the man who overcame this hurdle and bore the weight of this responsibility. 10 years ago, Xiao Jiming did the same. Someday, if someone else is able to break through, has no fear of hardship and suffering, and is willing to be forged and tempered in the same way, then that man shall be the new commander of the Li Bei armored cavalry. How honorable and dignified you make Xiao Fengshu out to be. But in reality, the Xiao clan has monopolized military power in Li Bei for 3 decades. The look in Wei Huaigu's eyes was mocking. That's simply because the 2 men who have consecutively borne this weight happen to be surnamed Xiao. Xiao Qia's eyes seemed to blaze with an almost blinding brilliance. In the dim light of the prison, it was as if he was both Xiao Fengshu and Xiao Jiming, as well as the fiery pride of all 3 men of the Xiao clan kept hidden beneath their armor. Sorry, I read that wrong. As well as the fiery pride all 3 men of the Xiao clan kept hidden beneath their armor. You call my father a king wolf, but there is no hierarchy of blood lineage in a wolf pack. As long as you can defeat us, you can lead us. Everything the Li Bei armored cavalry has today, it has earned. And someday... Xiao Qia's voice came to a stop. But Shen Zichuan knew what he wanted to say. He wanted to say that someday, when he returned to Li Bei, he would also partake in a fight among wolves. As long as he could defeat his challengers, he would become the 3rd king wolf. The pride and willfulness of the Xiao clan sustained itself fearlessly against opposition. This was Xiao Fengshu's soul, and he had instilled this spirit in both of his sons, as well as the Li Bei armored cavalry. Do you know why the Qi clan, who similarly guards our frontier and holds military power firmly in their family hands, has never faced the same hostility from the noble clans? Wei Huaigu met Xiao Qia's eyes and said mildly, because the Xiao clan were all born with a rebellious streak. This pride of yours is precisely the cause of Chudu's distrust of Li Bei. And do you know why the noble clans will never truly fall? Because we know when to bend instead of break. We seize the opportunities presented to us. The Li clan is the root, the foundation of Great Zhou. We surround it, see it bud, and let it grow. We take turns, and we give to one another. We are the soil that sustains Great Zhou. The land that supports you under your feet, the sky you look at when you raise your head. All the stability you enjoy comes from the noble clans holding our nation together. Those who threaten this stability are our enemies. 26 years ago, the crown prince of the Li clan led the Eastern Palace in an attempt to destroy the status quo. How naive. The crown prince didn't understand that once the noble clans collapsed, the Li clan would wither too. That was why he was doomed to die. Hua Siqian may die, as may Shi Hongxuan. And so can I. But it's merely our bodies that perish. The noble clan behind us is that sky and earth. It can't be overthrown by human hands alone. Nobody can defeat us. How many years has it been, yet the only scholar from a common household to have ever broken through our ranks in the imperial court and posed a risk is Hai Liangyi. He laid low for close to 30 years, patiently waiting. He's at the top now, but does he dare to turn the world upside down without careful consideration? He revitalized the Imperial College and promoted scholars from common households. Every step he takes is cautious, because he knows using brute force to knock us aside will be the ruin of the Empire. But he's already old. How much longer will he live? After his death, this little plank bridge he constructed will crumble and fall apart. He can't possibly succeed. Wei Huaigu burst out laughing. He gripped the bars and looked at Shen Zichun. Qi Huilian led the Eastern Palace, charging forward like a sharp blade and refusing to compromise with us. He thought he could change the world, but he ended up causing the death of the crown prince. These so-called geniuses should reflect on their shortcomings. His is a cautionary tale of radicalism. Stop him! Shen Zichun jumped to his feet. Xiao Qie lunged forward, but it was too late. Wei Huaigu had begun to cough violently. He doubled over, his cupped hands full of blood, and lifted his eyes to look at the two of them. Enduring the excruciating pain, he gasped through bloody teeth. You can't win. You're doomed. Doomed to fail. Xiao Qie kicked the cell door open, hauled Wei Huaigu up, and pried his jaw open. Foul blood trickled down his chin as Wei Huaigu's life guttered out. His convulsing limbs gradually stiffened, his eyes still open in a final glare. The flame of the candle died. Only the whine of the wind could be heard inside the prison. The Imperial heir! Xiao Qie dropped the corpse and raced out with Shen Zichun at his heels. The sky was brightening outside, but the city was still shrouded in dense, dark clouds. The passing rainstorm threatened to resume at any moment. A heaviness hung in the air, cut by the chaotic patter of running footsteps. Xiao Qie pushed open the door of the prison and saw the panic-stricken girls inside. The stench of blood assailed his nostrils. Every one of the boys had been killed, their bodies strewn over the ground. Sweat beaded on Xiao Qie's temples. He clutched Wolfsfang's hilt as his eyes swept across the terrified faces of the living and the dead. He and Shen Zichun hadn't made any move yet, so who had killed the Imperial heir? Cool wind blew against Xiao Qie's drenched back as he and Shen Zichuan stepped out into the courtyard. He was still staring when he heard galloping hoofbeats behind them. His voice breaking from the jolting stride, Fu Man shouted in a fluster, Your lordship, please come to the palace quickly. His Majesty is in terrible danger. Xiao Qie started forward, but Shen Zichuan took hold of Xiao Qie's arm and held him back. He was so calm his gaze made Fu Man shiver. What do you mean by danger? Make yourself clear. His Majesty is critically ill, Fu Man cried, snot and tears running down his face. He urgently summons his lordship for an audience. There is an important matter he wishes to entrust to his lordship. What? All that just happened in the matter of 2 pages? Excuse me, what? Hello? That's the end of the chapter. Thank you, Blue. See, nothing to worry about. Totally, yeah. Well, we're on page 235 for chapter 96, which is called The Fall. The iron-gray sky presaged the inevitable storm. Xiao Qie removed Wolf's Fang at the entrance of the palace and stepped into the long, dark hallway. Eunuchs knelt on either side, heads bowed. It was silent, both inside and outside Mingli Hall. With scuttling steps, Fu Man led Xiao Qie to the door and lifted the curtains. The drapes within the bedchamber hung low, the air in the room thick with a suffocating heat, mixed with the stench of blood. Your Majesty, look, Fu Man whispered between sobs. His lordship is here. From behind the drapes, Li Jianheng grunted. Send everyone else away. We wish to have a chat with the Marquis. No one is to disturb us before the Secretariat Elder arrives. Fu Man shuffled quietly out with the other servants. Ta'an, Li Jianheng shifted on the sheets. Open the curtains. Xiao Qie lifted the hanging drapery away from the bed. The sheets were mottled with blood. Li Jianheng looked as if he was soaking in a pool of filthy crimson. His chest heaved as he struggled for breath. Brother. Tears and sweat covered Li Jianheng's pale face. He wiped at his brow with a trembling hand, smearing his entire face with blood. Where the hell have you been? The anxiety was killing me. Muru was lying on her side next to Li Jianheng, already dead. Xiao Qie suddenly felt a little lonely. He had known this must be a trap, yet he had come anyway, all to earn this one last brother from Li Jianheng. The friendship of their reckless youth had been crushed to dust beneath the unforgiving wheels of power. Yet in this moment, it seemed to have been glued back together. He felt transported to the past. He pinned back the curtains and rasped. It was windy on the way here, and there were too many people on Shenwu Street. I couldn't ride as fast as I liked. Li Jianheng lifted the hand on his stomach and looked at the seeping stab wound there. You've been so good to me. You knew the danger in coming here, yet you still came. It wasn't in vain that I called you my brother. Xiao Qie dragged over a chair to sit and looked at Li Jianheng, his throat bobbing several times before he could speak. I told you a long time ago she wasn't a good match for you. But I liked her so much. Li Jianheng dazedly rubbed the blood between his fingers. And I thought she liked me too. Fuck. So this is how much it hurts to be stabbed. Xiao Qie scrubbed his hands over his face and propped his elbows on his knees. Did you call me here to tell me something? Li Jianheng's eyes found him. and he chuckled at Xiao Chia through his tears before his face crumpled again. Voice breaking, he choked out, "I called for you, and so you came. What the fuck is wrong with you, Xiao Tse-an? Don't you know this place is surrounded? That they're waiting for you out there with swords in their hands?" Just as Xiao Chia had done when resolving tough situations for Prince Chu in the past, he calmly nodded. "I know." Anna, I agree with Blue. Ow. Oh no, Henry, you're right. Are they getting framed? Is this a getting framed plot? It looks like it could be. Li Jianheng swallowed another sob. "If you hadn't come, I wouldn't have to apologize." Xiao Chia's eyes were bloodshot. "You're the Emperor. The Emperor doesn't need to apologize." Li Jianheng pressed a hand to his wound and shook his head, tears coursing down his face. Brother, I really wanted to be a good emperor. Just a few days ago, I was memorizing classics. Tell this to the Secretariat Elder on my behalf when you head out. You're the Emperor. Tell him yourself." "That won't do." Gasping and hoarse, Li Jianheng said, "I'm the Emperor. I can't go myself. It's too humiliating. He's a loyal subject. Tell me, why am I so stupid? I really did want to call him my second father. And I'm scared that after I die, both of you will be stabbed too. How can you leave this life behind when you're such a scaredy cat?" Xiao Chia croaked. Li Jianheng gestured weakly. "Imperial brother is waiting for me. I'm afraid he's going to scold me again. I've let him down." Xiao Chia snorted a laugh. "That's all you've got?" Li Jianheng's breathing was shallow. He pursed parched lips again and again. "I've let you down too. I didn't stick by you. We were both in situations we had no control over. I really, really regret it. You should go, Tse-an. After you leave here, just go. Get on your horse and go home. My hands are empty, but it would be embarrassing if I didn't give you something." Xiao Chia rubbed his face again. Li Jianheng raised a finger and pointed toward the wall. He muttered, beginning to slur, That bow. It's the one you helped me obtain from Imperial Brother. But fuck, I can't draw it." Oh dear, there's art. I'm not looking at that yet. No, there's art. "Take it with you. The wolf pup should stay in the grasslands. Your thumb ring must have gone rusty by now." "I don't want it." Xiao Chia rejected him heartlessly. "That's your family's conqueror bow." "But you are a conqueror." Li Jianheng's voice had thinned to a whisper. He gazed at the bow. "In my next life, don't bring me here again. I want to be a swallow of our great Zhou, nesting under the eaves of abundance." What's on the front cover? Didn't we decide they're swallows? The front cover, they're swallows. That's what the birds are. It can't really see it very well, but I think that's what they are. Thanks for that cover. He fixed his eyes quietly on the conqueror bow and didn't move again. The wind shook the drapes in the bedchamber. Seated on that chair, Xiao Chia listened as muffled thunder crashed outside and torrential rain roared down. Well, no. Now we're gonna look at the art. You're right, Blue. He was just a silly little guy in a too big seat. Okay, wait. Like, These? Yeah. And that's what we're looking at. Mm-hmm. Yep. Wait, was it his birthday? Did I forget? Was it the Emperor's birthday? Oh no, I'm sorry. You're making a reference to something. I was like, wait a minute. Henry, I was like, what? No, okay. I thought I missed something for a second, and I was like, wait a minute, that makes it even worse. No, I see the ref now. Okay. Oh dear. Oh no. Okay. There's a scene break. Han Chung finished his last mouthful of tea, holding the cup in his hands as he walked out the door to look over the soldiers of the 8 great battalions, standing by for battle. He flung the teacup to the ground and boomed at the top of his lungs. The Imperial Army has a scant 8,000 men in Chudu. The men at the drill grounds at Mount Feng can't provide reinforcements if no word reaches them. Xiao Qie is already a caged beast. There's the caged beast thing again. Today, we must take him down. Rain pounded the ground. The thunder of densely clustered footsteps wrapped around the Imperial Palace. Sheaths scraped against armor as the 8 great battalions laid siege to the Imperial bedchamber. Fu Man's legs went weak as he listened. All the eunuchs cowered in the corners, lest they be sacrificed to these swords. Xiao Qie finally understood. Under the hatching of light and shadow, he drew down the bed curtains for Li Jianheng. Only then did he turn around to take down the conqueror bow that weighed 100 caddies. The doors had been thrown open. Xiao Qie pushed aside layer upon layer of fluttering drapery and walked out into the sluicing rain without a backward glance. Han Zheng raised a hand, and his men drew their blades. There was nothing for him to shout, because they had already won. In this heavy downpour, they wanted to reverse the tide and make Xiao Qie kneel once more. Xiao Qie looked out at that sea of dark heads. He stepped out from under the palace eaves and walked down the long steps. He had no blade. By the time the rainwater wiped away his indifference, he'd collided with the crowd. He held the conqueror bow out before him to block those blades, pushing the wall of soldiers back with an unrelenting, indomitable aura that drowned even the roar of the torrential rain. Outside the palace, Shen Zichuan spurred his horse forward, the embroidered uniform guard and imperial army behind him like a scarlet serpent as they crashed through the palace gates amid the flash of blades, surging toward Mingli Hall. The entire palace had been locked down, the heavily armored soldiers prepared for siege. Everywhere was pandemonium. The din of battle filled the air, and the rearing horses turned the fighting into a frenzy. Ignoring the sea of people, Snowcrest charged straight for Xiao Qie, who used the momentary opening to swing into the saddle and catch Wolf's Fang as Shen Zichuan tossed it over. Xiao Qie drew the blade. Chudu is not the home I dream of. I'm going home today. Whoever dares stand in my way, I'll kill him. With that, he tightened his grip on the reins and drew blood with the first brandish of his blade. The rain battered their faces as Xiao Qie carved a bloody path through the crowd. The battlefield spilled from the interior of the palace onto the streets. Realizing he'd lost his advantage, Han Chung shouted, "Guard the city gate to the death. We can't let this treasonous spawn who has slain his own sovereign escape." But the 8 great battalions were no match for the Imperial Army. Even if they bested them in numbers, they feared death, and so the fearless troops of the Imperial Army forced them back and back again. By the time they arrived, The city gate had fallen. Blade in hand, Shen Zichuan climbed up the city wall first, dispatching anyone who stood in his path. He called for his men to open the gate, and that tightly shut door lifted with a rumble. Beyond the curtain of rain was the home Xiao Qie had spent 6 years longing for. Han Chung turned back and shouted, "Bring him! Hurry!" Xiao Qie's horse had already shot through the open gate. He raised a hand, motioning for Ding Tao to lead the men toward the drill grounds at Mount Feng. They had to take the 20,000 men from the Imperial Army with them. In that crush of soldiers, he wheeled his horse around and spread his arms wide toward Shen Zichuan atop the city wall. In a deep, ringing voice, he called out, "Lanzhou, come with me." But the embroidered uniform guard stood tall and still. In the heavy rain, Shen Zichuan held firmly to the battlement. He gazed at Xiao Qie on the other side, as if to take in the whole sight of him. The 8 great battalions had regrouped to pursue the Imperial Army out of the city gate. At that moment, the suspended city gate let out a muffled groan, as if straining under its own weight. The iron chains swiftly recoiled, and it came rushing down with a thunderous clang. "Tuan." Shen Zichuan raised his voice, the words gentle even through the hissing rain. "Go home." I thought they were going together. What is happening? I don't like this. What are we doing? Xiao Qie felt as though his heart had plunged into icy water. He too. He gripped the reins hard, already spurring his horse back toward the city as the city gate slammed into the ground with a resounding shake. Its bulk trapped the pursuing soldiers from the 8 great battalions within the city and shut Xiao Qie out. Like a beast enraged, Xiao Qie howled, "Shen Lanzhou!" Shen Zichuan didn't look at Xiao Qie again. He turned to regard Han Chung and the densely packed soldiers from the 8 great battalions. Han Chung looked away and spat. "Shen Zichuan," he snapped, "you've ruined my plans. Do you think you deserve to call yourself a member of the embroidered uniform guard?" Shen Zichuan looked down on him, his voice frosty. Since Ji Wufan, the embroidered uniform guard have been heroes of indomitable spirit and clear conscience. Yet today, you laid a trap and conspired to murder the Son of Heaven. Han Chung, it's only right that I kill you. Han Chung threw his head back and laughed. "Who do you think you are? The last descendant of the Shen clan. I treated you well. I guided and supported you over and over, and this is how you repay me? Here, bring that man over and show him to Vice Commander Shen." 2 soldiers at last appeared, driving a disheveled Qi Huilian before them. He collapsed in the rainwater and cursed, "Treacherous vermin." Han Chung reached down and yanked at his chains, spurring his horse forward and dragging Qi Huilian through the street. He pointed at Qi Huilian and called up, "Haven't you been looking for him all this time? Here he is. Shen Zichuan, come and get him." "Traitor. Scum." Qi Huilian was boiling with fury as mud smeared his face. Taking in the paleness of Shen Zichuan's face and the darkness in his eyes, Han Chung sneered. "Your eldest brother was the heir of Jianxing. I remember the Biansha horsemen dragged him to his death just like this. But there was no love lost between you, so it didn't hurt you then. Does it hurt today, now that it's your teacher's turn?" "Han Chung!" Shen Zichuan spat Han Chung's name through clenched teeth. "You went to such trouble to hide Xian Chung from me. What do you want?" "He was initially of great use," Han Chung called back, then turned hostile. "But you let Xiao Qie go and ruined my trap. You're no longer useful to me, and neither is he. If you want to save him, kneel down and kowtow to me. Admit your mistakes. If you kneel and address me as father thrice, I'll spare the both of you. Shen Zichuan took a step forward. Deal. Bullshit. Shi Huilian lifted his head from the muddy water. He scraped off the filth and staggered to his feet. Eyes fixed on Shen Zichuan, he cried, I didn't teach you the scroll for you to accept humiliation. I, Shi Huilian, refuse to bow even to heaven and earth. How can my student kneel to this odious scum? His shackles clanked and clattered. Kicking up muddy water, Shi Huilian stumbled forward and shouted at the top of his lungs. 100 years passed like a dream, and still I come and go as I wish. There is a footnote. 100 years have passed as if I were dreaming I was a butterfly. From Double Tune, Traveling by Boat in the Night, Autumn Thoughts by Ma Zhiyuan, a poet and celebrated playwright from the Yuan dynasty. I've lived a life of wealth and glory, fame and fortune, and I... He laughed maniacally as he tugged at the chains around his neck. Oh, Lord, there's more art. Oh, there's more art. Oh, dear. I agree, Henry. We need to make a doc collecting all the poems in this in Arha, because they always bang. Oh, gosh. I have laughed at all the heroic figures throughout the land. No other talent surpasses me in the world. Who could compare to me, Qi Huilian? I am the renowned top scholar from Yuzhou, first in all 3 levels of the civil exams. When I declaimed before the throne and counseled the emperor, Han Cheng, where were you? You were just a rat in a ditch. Qi Huilian swayed as if intoxicated as he stood in the rain. Vermin like you are unworthy of carrying my shoes. The noble clans are the rotten boils on this land. Tell Hai Liang Yi that the Zhou Empire is already beyond remedy. Neither he nor I have the ability to turn the tide. Qi Huilian laughed as he turned around haughtily and spat at Han Cheng. But I won't admit defeat. In this life, I will only teach the throne. I will only serve as imperial preceptor. Lanzhou, the cage is broken, and the world will surely plunge into turbulence. I've taught you all I could. Why not? With his back to Shen Zichuan, Qi Huilian choked with silent sobs. The downpour drenched him to the skin, but it couldn't douse the fervor that had blazed all his life. For 20 years, he had called for the crown prince, yet in this moment, it was Shen Zichuan he couldn't bear to face. Why not overturn this rotten sky and earth to create a world you can call your own? Lanzhou, go. Don't look back. Xiansheng will shoulder the burden of those 30,000 wrongfully perished souls on your behalf. Don't be afraid. Han Cheng's blade sank into flesh, and Qi Huilian's blood spattered in the rain. He toppled onto his back. Gazing at the steely clouds overhead, he murmured, Have no fear. Thunder shook the skies. Shen Zichuan fell to his knees. He sat dazed, allowing the torrential rain to batter him. As the silence stretched, his mask shredded to pieces. He let out the first howl of despair in these 6 long years. Okay, so everyone's just having people they love die. And this art... Oh my god, I'm angry about this art. I'm very angry about this art. Hold up. Let me get that so you can see that. I don't know why it's upsetting to me that Chen Zichuan is like wearing the earrings from Xiao Jia as well. I mean, he's been wearing them, but just that detail, I don't like it. I don't know. It's just Ow. Everything is ow. And hold on, let me see where we are, what time it is. There's even, after this, there's one more chapter for today. So I'm, you know, I don't know where we're going. I don't know what we're doing. I don't know anything. Yes, Blue, Shen Zichuan has lost dad number 2. Xiao Qie is also left without one of his father-in-laws. Yeah, basically. Oh man. Okay. I'm back. We're reading. No sanity was left in his reddened eyes as his hand found Avalanche's hilt and drew the blade. Han Chung. He hated this sky and earth to death. He loathed these faces to death. Shen Zichuan pushed himself up off the ground. Avalanche flashed through droplets of rain, flinging blood into the crush of soldiers rushing toward him. He killed one man, then another. He strode over those bodies without hesitation, like a beast abandoned. His blade opened throats so fluidly it appeared as a stream of quicksilver, leaving blood sprayed across half Shen Zichuan's face. He stumbled forward, as if lost. Blood ran like tears across his cheeks. Retreating again and again, Han Chung bellowed, "Kill him!" Raindrops burst apart in the wind. In a flash, a long arrow buried itself in the ground before Han Chung. Xiao Qie swung down from the city wall on a length of iron chain, kicked a man down, and ran him through with the flip of his hand. Leaving the corpse skewered before him, he swiftly used it to block the flashes of fresh blades. When he extracted Wolf's Fang from the corpse, the man's blood had soaked both his palms. He just swung down from a chain. Are you joking? Xiao Qie dragged Shen Zichuan back with one arm and whistled. Meng spread his wings and dropped. In the chaos, the falcon fell upon Han Chung's right eye. Han Chung scrabbled his hands across his face in panic. He heard the thunder of hooves beyond the walls. Ding Tao had led the men charging back toward the city. "Break down the gate," Ding Tao yelled. The Imperial army swept forward, but before they could make a move, a dull boom rang out again as the gate was slowly hoisted up. Dragging the iron chain, Fei Sheng wheezed and led the embroidered uniform guard to heave with him. "Fuck them and their ancestors. This son of a bitch is so heavy, damn it. Your lordship, get on your horse and go." Snowcrest streaked in through the gap as Chudu was engulfed in the sounds of slaughter. Across the empire, those same sounds echoed through the Bianjun commandery as the men fought for their lives. Lu Guangbai could barely lift his spear now. He shouted as they withdrew, "Where are the reinforcements?" The deputy general, wounded himself, answered, They didn't come." The rain drummed against the sand. Lu Guangbai looked back in the direction of the camp. Xiao Qie had pulled Shen Zichuan up onto his horse. He pressed him to his chest as they broke through the heavy rain toward the city gate. Lightning flashed and thunder boomed. A rift seemed to have been torn in the sky as the rain poured down mercilessly onto the desert sand. Lu Guangbai ripped off his tattered cloak and nailed his spear into the ground at his feet. He said over the blowing storm, "We can't fight anymore." Lying at the side of a sandy slope, the deputy general looked at him. "Fate wants to bind me here for life, but this is not the path I choose." Piece by piece, Lu Guangbai stripped off his armor, engraved with the Zhou Empire's emblem. He wiped the wind and water from his face, his eyes filled with world weariness, and his words with self-mockery. "The desert sand has buried my brothers. I no longer wish to submit myself to a meaningless fate. The Imperial Edict can't save my men, and the imperial court can't feed my mounts. Xiaoqie galloped out of Chudu, countless soldiers of the 8 great battalions in pursuit behind him. They charged ahead, tearing through the dark and rainy night. I'm no longer willing to lay down my life for this cause. Lu Guangbai closed his eyes. Blood trickled down his fingers and soaked into the yellow sand. His throat bobbed. When he opened his eyes, they were dim and heavy. Rain had washed the blood on Shen Zichuan's cheeks away. Sobs of grief escaped his throat. In the sorry escape, he'd forsaken all his past obedience to those who held power over his life. Like a sharp sword, the company pierced through the downpour. Lu Guangbai washed his hands clean in the rainwater and once again picked up his long spear. They were all prisoners on the run from fate. They had once been willing to stay shackled, but the rainstorm had toppled the great edifice of the state, and its collapsed debris rushed toward them like floodwater. Onward, onward. Lu Guangbai's voice rang over the desert. I want to scale that mountain. I'm going to fight for myself. That's the end of the chapter? Hello, what? Anna, what you just said, this whole sequence of Suzhou leaving Chudu and Lu Guangbai's desertion would be such an epic montage and a drama. Like, I so agree with you. I wish there was a drama for this. Or something. I want to see this visually. I need it. So I thought Lu Guangbai was about to take his own life. And, he did not. That's not where that went, which I'm very glad for, because I was like, no, dude, not, let's not do this again. Stop. But wow, no, it's totally not what I thought. And that felt very, I don't know. I feel, I am, well, the next chapter title is called In Pain, and I am in pain, but I also feel very inspired. Blue Turnip says, colored art time. Okay. Okay, we're looking at the colored art. Oh my gosh. Okay. Okay. Alright. Wait. How... Get this over here. I'm sorry if it doesn't look very good in the lighting and this camera, but wow. Every time I would like flip pages, I would try to skip looking at that, and I didn't really see what it was, but I just knew that they were on a horse in that image. But that's all I saw. And now the context, oh man. Oh dear. Henry, today I saw a post that was like, I thought Danmei were all sweet, happy stories. What the fuck is happening in Case File? Whatever gave that person that impression. I don't know what Danmei they were reading. Some really cute slice of life stuff that I have not yet read. Okay. I'm gonna read one more chapter today. We might go over a little bit, but that's okay. Yeah. One of the I did page math ahead of time, and one of the later streams is gonna be like a little bit shorter. But again, it just worked out that way. If I do it any other way, it's gonna be way too wonky. So here we go. We get to be in pain, as chapter 97 is called. The rain that had fallen without cease for several days subsided at last into a drizzle, leaving the public roads a river of mud. Chudu fell into a state of mourning. The sudden death of the young Tianchen emperor shocked the city, and rumors spread like wildfire behind closed doors. The Marquis of Dingdu, Xiaoqie, had colluded with the vice commander and northern judge of the embroidered uniform guard, Shen Zichuan, to assassinate the emperor and seize the throne. As the Tianqian emperor had no imperial heir, the ministers presented a memorial requesting the Empress Dowager preside over pressing matters of state in place of the emperor. She repeatedly excused herself on the grounds that the harem must not interfere with state affairs. It was only after the chief commander of the embroidered uniform guard, Han Chung, kowtowed thrice in remonstration that she was convinced to step in. With the 8 great battalions reassuming control over Chudu's patrols and defenses, the streets crawled with soldiers at all hours. The common folk didn't dare venture outside, and the taverns and brothels shut their doors. The old, bustling Chudu was a thing of the past. Even the vermilion walls and glazed tiles appeared washed out in the misty drizzle. Hai Liangyi had collapsed several times as he wept before the imperial coffin. He now lay at home, unable to swallow even a drop of medicine. His hair seemed to have paled to white overnight, and his spirited eyes that once gleamed with brilliance had dimmed. After all the tears he had shed, they appeared muddled and cloudy. Teacher, Kongqiu sat at the foot of the bed with his head bowed. You must take the medicine. The world is in turmoil, and everyone is waiting for you to take the helm and steer the state towards stability once more. You must have a care for your health. The tear tracks at the corners of Hai Liangyi's eyes had yet to be wiped clean. His gaze drifted, and it was only after a long time that he said, Take the helm and steer the state back towards stability? Boran, what can I do? The situation can no longer be saved. The bamboo tube in the courtyard tapped gently against the rock in the stream, exposing the cracks spidering across its surface. Rain whispered down, but it couldn't cover those scars. Hai Liangyi was simply too old. His vitality had been eroded by the ups and downs of his post, and now there were signs he might never recover from his illness. Grief overwhelmed Kongqiu. He sat where he was, weeping with his face in his hands. How did it come to this? Han Chung is a hypocrite. He speaks honeyed words while possessing the heart of a viper. He is petty and narrow-minded. Now that he's in power, the entire imperial court of civil and military officials will be walking on eggshells. Even worse, he chased Xiao Qie out, leaving Li Bei without a shackle. From now on, Hai Liangyi burst into a fit of coughing, then propped himself up and vomited blood. In his weakness, he couldn't hold back his sorrow and cried hoarsely as he gripped the edge of the bed. From now on, our territory will be torn asunder, and our nation will descend into chaos. The century-old empire of the Li clan will fall into ruins. I've sinned. I'm a sinner. I, Hai Renshi, have spent all my life shamelessly navigating official circles to advance my own agenda. Yet all of it was vain toil for the benefit of these villains. I. Hai Liangyi hung his ash-white head and wailed, his voice so hoarse and hopeless that it drove Kongqiu to despair. Teacher, teacher. Kongqiu rushed to help him up, then looked back and shouted, Help! The curtain lifted, but it was Yao Wenyu who entered. When he saw Hai Liangyi, he knelt at once on the footrest with no regard for the filth, and took his handkerchief to wipe away the tears and blood for his teacher. He instructed the attendant to draw water and rinse the handkerchief, then helped Hai Liangyi lie down. After speaking a few soothing words, he said softly to Kongqiu, Your Excellency, may I ask you to wait outside, please? Hastily, Kongqiu retreated. At long last, Hai Liangyi's cries subsided. With the bowl in his hand, Yao Wenyu personally fed his teacher medicine. It was only after Hai Liangyi was asleep that he lifted the curtain and stepped out. Kongqiu looked as if he wanted to speak, But Yao Wenyu motioned for him to follow the attendant to the main hall while he made his way along the veranda to a back room for a change of clothes. When Yao Wenyu reappeared, he asked the attendant to serve tea and sat in the lower position to Kong Cho's right. My apologies for keeping you waiting, Your Excellency. For a moment, Kong Cho held the teacup in silence. Teacher has no son. It's a comfort to have you here taking care of him. I shouldn't have said so much to upset him. Although teacher is ill at home, he's still concerned about state affairs. Even if Your Excellency hadn't brought it up, it's difficult for him to dismiss them from his mind. Crying is better than bottling it up in his heart. Yao Wenyu held the teacup and stirred it a few times before saying, The situation as it stands is volatile. Teacher won't have long to rest, anyway. Kong Cho sighed. He knew Hai Liang Yi treated this young man as his own son, so he didn't hold back. His Majesty passed so suddenly. We were already in a disadvantageous position. The Han clan has established control of the military in Chudu, and the Empress Dowager has established control of the government. After this incident, what will become of Li Bei? Yao Wenyu was fair by nature and looked no different from the porcelain teacup in his hand. At this point, we must begin to discuss countermeasures. Han Chung is the chief commander of the Embroidered Uniform Guard. If he wishes to overstep his authority and take the reins of government from within the Grand Secretariat, his only recourse is to request that the Empress Dowager issue an imperial edict. Wei Huaigu ingested poison and committed suicide over the military provisions case. The vacancy he left in the Grand Secretariat will need to be filled. Even so, all the important affairs of the imperial court must still be deliberated over and endorsed by the various ministers under teacher. Setting down the teacup, Kong Cho asked humbly, But the Empress Dowager is presiding over state affairs, and any changes in the Grand Secretariat are subject to her approval. If she issues a change of personnel and allows Han Chung to enter, what should we do? Yao Wenyu smiled. Putting the Empress Dowager in charge of state affairs is a desperate measure to begin with. Her surname isn't Li. How long can she convince the masses she's acting on behalf of the Son of Heaven? Set aside everyone else for now. What's crucial today is the Qi clan. Although Qi Juyin cares little for government affairs, the Qi clan's reputation for loyalty rests firmly on her shoulders. She will never allow the Empress Dowager and Han Chung to commit outrage in Chudu. The Empress Dowager will want to win her over. She won't cross the line just yet. Rather than worry about the Empress Dowager's attempts to stuff the Grand Secretariat, Your Excellency ought to worry more about Han Chung's next steps. Han Chung has made every effort to ingratiate himself with the Empress Dowager, Kong Cho said. He has succeeded. In my humble opinion, it's just the opposite. Yao Wenyu looked out toward the misty rain outside. Right now, it does seem Han Chung has gained the favor of the Empress Dowager, but if we consider the bigger picture, I'd say it's instead the Empress Dowager who's thrown her lot in with Han Chung. She's only risen to power again currently because the Emperor has no heir. The imperial court cannot be without a master, and because of the paucity of options, everyone has compromised and made concessions. But the Zhou Empire must have a new Son of Heaven, and thus her grip on power is temporary. In contrast, the military power Han Chung holds in his hands is the real deal. The fact that he dared lay a trap for Xiao Qie in Mingli Hall shows clearly that he has another card up his sleeve. He has little to fear. You mean? Kong Cho was shocked. Han Chung has an imperial heir? Yao Wenyu sipped his tea. The Guangcheng Emperor often stayed nights outside the palace. Perhaps another imperial heir exists, perhaps not. But the way things stand, Even if Han Chung doesn't have a true imperial heir to put on the throne, he will use every means possible to create one. Kong Chou's heart went cold. Han Chung has men and horses in the 8 great battalions, and the embroidered uniform guard answers to him as well. The officials in the capital all have their families to think of. They might not be willing to clash with him if it really comes to it. If he shoves someone up on the dragon throne to rule the imperial court, He trailed off. Yao Wenyu changed the topic. Has the imperial army already passed through Dancheng? And there's a scene break. The imperial army had indeed passed through Dancheng, but they had yet to reach Zhongbo. Xiaoqie raced the entire way, but the soldiers and horses needed rest. Eventually, they had to make camp. Shen Zichuan had fallen gravely ill, plagued by both his old ailments and fresh despair. He seemed to be conscious, yet out of reach. It was as if he was trapped in a mire of nightmares, engulfed once more by rainwater and filthy blood. Since the pox, Xiaoqie had privately suspected that Shen Zichuan had never fully regained his health. The medicine he had consumed in his younger years had turned into latent poison that sickened his already weak body. Xiaoqie didn't dare take chances. As soon as they stopped, he went looking for a physician. Shen Zichuan's thoughts were thick and slow, and there was a dreadful roaring in his ears. He heard Xiaoqie's voice as he lay on the pillow, yet he also seemed to hear his teacher's final shouts. In his brief moments of wakefulness, he imagined he was still in Duanzhou. He smelled familiar dishes, as if the person hovering just outside the door was his Shenyang, Hua Pingting. But he dared neither move nor look. He had seemed to possess everything, yet he still had nothing to his name. He thought he had killed that weakest part of himself, that this mortal flesh would shed no more tears. But he had been too naive, too full of youthful arrogance. It had only seemed so because he had yet to experience such immeasurable pain. He had come this far, only to feel as if he was being skinned alive. Xiaoqie drew Shen Zichuan into his arms. The nape of his neck, which once radiated seduction, had turned deathly pale. Face ashen amid dark hair, he looked like a cloud in the night. Xiaoqie stayed at his side, holding him so tight it hurt. "Are you cold?" Xiaoqie whispered. After a sluggish pause, Shen Zichuan nodded. He turned his head, pressing his cheek against Xiaoqie's. The heat of it breathed the warmth of the living into him. He reached out into the darkness to stroke Xiaoqie's arm around him, feeble and slow. Xiaoqie flipped his palm and found Shen Zichuan's hand, interlacing their fingers. All the warmth in him he gave to Shen Zichuan. His chest was the most searing. It pressed against Shen Zichuan's back, as if he could dissolve Shen Zichuan with its heat. He sheltered Shen Zichuan in the circle of his arms, permitting no one else to get close. He clumsily licked at Shen Zichuan's wounds. This was his way of healing. He didn't want this person to be in pain ever again. Chao Tianya has gone to look for Shifu. Shen Zichuan's eyes were dark and bruised. When will he be back? Soon. Xiaoqie squeezed Shen Zichuan's hand. Soon. I can't wipe the blood clean, Shen Zichuan said. We've embarked on a path of carnage. We don't need to be clean anymore. As long as we're together. Shen Zichuan pressed his thin lips together. He paused, as if he had forgotten what he wanted to say. Listening to the sound of the rain outside, he closed his mouth again. Trying not to look at the art. There's more art. Do you know how much art there's been in this stream? And I don't necessarily want to look at it. I don't know. It's too much. Xiaoqia pinched his cheeks to open that tightly pursed mouth and asked, "What did you want to say?" Shen Zichuan tried to turn his face aside, refusing to let Xiaoqia look at him, but Xiaoqia's grip was iron as he asked once again, low, "What did you want to say?" Shen Zichuan's face was pale under his gaze. His lips parted several times, but couldn't bring himself to speak. Xiaoqia gazed at him steadily. It seemed an endless time later when he finally heard Shen Zichuan sob. "It hurts." Xiaoqia cupped Shen Zichuan's cheeks. Shen Zichuan looked as if he had slipped backward into childhood. Tears streamed down his face as he repeated, "It hurts. It hurts," over and over, lips quivering. Stroking Shen Zichuan's hair, Xiaoqia wiped his tears with his thumbs. "Where does it hurt? Tell me." Shen Zichuan broke down and wept, his shoulders trembling. He was overwhelmed by grief, as though venting all these years of anguish in one night. Yet he was so foolish, he didn't even know where he was hurting, only that he couldn't endure the pain any longer. He numbly let Xiaoqia wipe his cheeks as fresh tears brimmed in his eyes. There was nothing left of the machinations that had suggested a maturity beyond his years, only raw pain. Xiaoqia rolled over and pulled Shen Zichuan into his chest, giving Shen Zichuan a haven to shed his mask without being seen. They clasped each other tightly, and Xiaoqia listened as Shen Zichuan cried himself hoarse. He was like a small, abandoned animal, like a battered child left broken and bleeding. The fabric at Xiaoqia's chest was gradually soaked through. He caressed Shen Zichuan's hair, answering again and again, "It won't hurt anymore. I promise. Lanzhou will never hurt again." That's what we're looking at right now. That's the art. Pseudo was just coming here to punish us. No, that's the end of the chapter. It ends there. Just art, just... It will never hurt again, Lanzhou. And then the art, this godforsaken art, and then that's the end. That's it. That's where we leave off for today. Has this much stuff ever happened in one of these streams before, like all at once like this? Because it just feels like absolutely relentless and unending, and so many plot things happened, and we're just, yes, Anna, people dying and crying, a lot of it. I hope we calm down a little for the next one. I hope that's like the big one, and now we can, you know, I don't know. That was just a lot. Blue, Xiaoqia makes me cry almost as much as Lanzhou here. That level of support, comfort, and unconditional love and strength. I know. Get you a man. Like, he doesn't have to say, "I love you." He can just say that. He can just do what he did. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, that was, That was a stream. We have... Let me make sure. Yeah, we have 3 more streams of this book after this. Goodness. I knew that things were gonna go down in this volume because it just gives that vibe, and the cover art kind of gives the cover art. I do think someone said they did a good job of like doing the art without it being spoilery, and I do agree because like it's vague and you don't really know what it's about. But I was thinking like, oh, they're riding a horse together on the cover. That might mean that they're like running away from something. So I definitely got that vibe, and I was just waiting for that moment in this book, and we got that moment, and it was a lot more than I was expecting. As for the art, don't take my word for it, but I heard the artists get a list of scenes they can make art for, and they get to pick which ones they do. I knew that, like, they didn't have, like, full freedom and control over, like, the art that they get to do. That's interesting. I mean, very effective scenes were picked, for sure. Like, the art is so beautiful. I can't get over it. And I really like Pseudo as an artist, and the art that they do for, like, Arha and Remnants of Filth. But the art style for the interior art in Changjinzhou is, like, so... It's so perfectly suited to the tone of the books, and it's just so something. Like, it's particularly satisfying for me. I really like it. Yeah. I like that they don't just do the same exact style for everything. I think it's interesting. Blue, Pseudo's art for QJJ is my favorite 7 Seas art yet. I totally get it. I think I might be right there with you, honestly. It's really good. It has like a... what is it? There's like a slightly sketchier and darker, like shadowier style, I guess, than like Arha. Yeah, grittier and less fantastical. That's it. Yeah. Oh, Oh, there's a manhwa. I did not realize there was a manhwa. Did I know that? I don't think I knew that. I should just expect that there's going to be a manhwa for things. For some reason, it always like blindsides me. Like, oh wait, it has a manhwa too? I want to check that out because I was literally just saying, okay, the manhwa is ongoing. Okay. Yeah, I think that would be something that I'd want to read after finishing the novel. Blue, I agree with you on that. That makes sense. Um, yeah, good to know. I do really wish that there existed some sort of like drama or animation of this because it's so cinematic. Um, it's really I can like so many scenes I can visualize. Just it's crazy. Like I just if you get together a good crew, like I can just imagine what they could do with this. It would be so good. Um, but yeah. I So I've got to go, but thank you everyone for tuning in and being here with me during these moments. They would need a really big budget. You're probably right, Blue. But yeah, and there is the audio drama. I need to keep listening to that. I listened to the first 1 or 2, I think. It's good. It's really good. It's pretty intense. As the book starts very intense, so you can imagine. Oh yeah, so I'll see y'all on Wednesday. Thank you for coming. Bye. Oh, sorry. Bye.